Most people believe that money is about how much you earn. Wrong. Money is about how much you keep, how wisely you use it, and how intelligently you make it work for you. Most people serve money, the wealthy make money serve them. That choice, today, is yours. Because here's the truth. Money is a terrible master, but an excellent servant. So today, I will teach you the practical steps to take control of your finances. You'll discover how to plan your money before it leaves you, how to invest in yourself, and how to build habits that compound into freedom. Let's start. When I first started my journey with money, I was completely broke. I had no savings, no assets, and no plan for the future. I was living paycheck to paycheck, just trying to survive. It was during this time that a mentor of mine shared a principle that would forever change the way I think about money. The 70/30th rule. At first, I didn't understand it. I thought, how can I possibly set aside 30% of my income when I can barely pay my bills? But what he was teaching me wasn't about math. It was about discipline, perspective, and building a foundation for freedom. The principle is simple. Live on 70% of your income or less. That means if you earn $100, you allow yourself only $70 for living expenses. This is the portion that keeps your lights on, your food on the table, and your basic life running. Many people argue, I can barely get by as it is. I understand that because I was there. But what most people fail to grasp is that if you cannot control your spending on a modest income, you will never control your spending on a large one. Discipline is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be, and this rule forces you to practice it every day. The remaining 30% is where the magic happens. 10% goes into active investments. Things you manage directly, like starting a small business, buying equipment to grow your skill set, or investing in opportunities that generate immediate cash flow. Another 10% is for passive investments, for assets that work even while you sleep. That could be stocks, real estate, or anything that builds wealth silently in the background. And the final 10% is for giving, charity, contribution, or simply helping others in ways that matter. Many people resist this last part, thinking, I can't afford to give. But generosity is the secret ingredient. Giving not only enriches others, it enriches you. It opens doors you didn't know existed and creates a mindset of abundance rather than scarcity. When I applied this rule, I didn't see instant wealth. I saw something more important: control. I began making conscious decisions about money instead of reacting emotionally. I realized that money is either a servant or a master, and this rule ensures it serves you, not the other way around. I watched as my small investments grew over time, as my assets began producing income independently, and as I felt the quiet joy of helping others without expecting anything in return. Living on 70% is more than just a budgeting tip, it's a lifestyle philosophy. It teaches patience, prioritization, and purpose. It protects you from lifestyle creep, where expenses grow as income grows, leaving you trapped in the same struggle. And most importantly, it gives you freedom. The freedom to make choices, take risks, and create a life that is truly yours. This is where all wealth begins. Not in earning more, but in managing what you already have. Master the 70/30th rule, and you will be planting seeds that will grow into a forest of financial independence, stability, and peace. One of the greatest lessons I learned on the road to financial freedom is that real wealth is quiet. I see so many people chasing the illusion of wealth, thinking that if they can show it, they have it. They buy bigger cars, fancier watches, or flashier homes, believing that others' admiration equals success. But let me tell you something I discovered the hard way. True wealth is invisible to those who only look for appearances. Real wealth is freedom, security, and the ability to make choices without fear. It's the peace that comes from knowing you are in control of your life, not your circumstances or your bills. When I first began to save, invest, and manage my money with discipline, I didn't tell anyone. I didn't wear my growing wealth on my sleeve. Instead, I quietly built my foundation. I invested in assets, I improved my skills, and I nurtured habits that would make my money work for me over time. I avoided unnecessary luxuries and focused on living below my means. Friends would invite me to lavish outings, and I would politely decline, not because I wanted to deprive myself, but because I had a larger goal in mind. Every dollar I didn't waste was a brick in my future, a small but powerful step toward freedom. You see, the trap of showing off is a trap of the mind. It convinces you that wealth is external, that happiness comes from the approval of others, and that financial growth is measured by what people see. But every time I chose modesty over display, I gave myself room to expand. I learned that money has a unique power. If managed wisely, it grants freedom. If squandered to impress, it creates bondage. Quiet wealth allows you to think clearly, to take risks without the weight of appearances, and to invest without pressure. I remember a colleague who earned twice my income but spent it all on appearances. By the time he reached 50, he had little to show for it beyond stress and debt. Meanwhile, I had modest possessions, but my investments were growing, my skills were improving, and I had options. I could travel, start new ventures, or handle emergencies without panic. That is the essence of real wealth. It is functional, not decorative. It is power without the show, confidence without arrogance, and security without fear. So, if you want to build lasting wealth, embrace modesty. Avoid the temptation to impress with your spending. Focus on expanding your freedom, growing your assets, and creating options that last a lifetime. Every time you resist an unnecessary expense, you are gaining independence. Every time you invest in knowledge or assets rather than a fleeting luxury, you are building the future you desire. Remember, the world applauds flashy spending, but only quietly built wealth withstands the test of time. The choice is yours. Chase appearances or build freedom that lasts, silently, steadily, and with purpose. One of the most profound lessons I've learned about money is that it should never sit stagnant in your hands like a coin locked in a box. Money is a tool, not a shrine. Its purpose is not to be worshipped or hoarded. It is meant to move, to flow, to create. I remember early in my journey, I treated every dollar I earned as if I had to cling to it for survival. I was afraid to invest, afraid to spend, afraid to take any risk. But what I discovered is that when money merely accumulates without purpose, it loses its power. It becomes a source of anxiety, not freedom. Wealth begins to multiply when you let money flow through you rather than just sit with you. This doesn't mean reckless spending. It means using money to generate value for yourself and for others. I started small, investing in a course to improve my public speaking, buying books to expand my understanding of business, helping a friend launch a small project. Every dollar I allowed to circulate returned to me multiplied, not always immediately, but consistently over time. I began to see money not as a reward for work, but as fuel for growth. The more I used it to invest in myself, in others, and in opportunities, the more it came back. Hoarded wealth stagnates. It sits in a bank account, collecting dust and fear, but it does not grow. Invested wealth multiplies. I remember helping a young entrepreneur who had a modest savings but was unwilling to take the leap into building a small business. He feared loss more than he desired growth. I encouraged him to see his savings not as treasure to guard, but as tools to build something greater. Within a few years, that same money created jobs, revenue, and even a small community impact. His fear had limited him, but by letting money flow, he unlocked opportunity. Think of it this way. Money is like water. If you pour it into a stagnant pond, it becomes murky, useless, and unproductive. But if you channel it through a stream, it nourishes the soil, turns the wheels of progress, and creates life wherever it touches. The wealthy understand this principle intuitively. They don't worship money. They use it as a lever to move themselves and others forward. They invest in assets, ideas, people, and ventures that generate value and continue the cycle of growth. So, the question you must ask yourself is, are you letting your money merely accumulate, or are you putting it to work? Are you hoarding, or are you investing in possibilities? Every dollar you allow to circulate with purpose strengthens your position, builds influence, and multiplies the opportunities before you. When you embrace this mindset, money ceases to control you. Instead, it becomes a servant to your vision, a partner in creating abundance, and a tool to leave a lasting impact. Remember, money is not a destination, it is a vehicle. Use it wisely, let it flow, and watch it create a life far beyond what mere earning could ever achieve. One of the most overlooked aspects of building wealth is the language that surrounds it. If you want to move from being an observer of money to a master of money, you must first learn to speak its language. Words like ROI, equity, cash flow, and asset classes are not just jargon. They are the tools through which wealth communicates with you. I remember when I first sat down with my mentor, he didn't ask me how much I earned or what car I drove. Instead, he asked, "Do you understand cash flow?" At that moment, I realized that no matter how hard I worked, I couldn't fully grasp wealth until I understood its language. The truth is this: if you can't speak the language of wealth, you will always be an outsider. You might accumulate income, you might save, you might even invest blindly, but you'll never truly control or grow money efficiently. It's like being given a complex book in a language you don't understand. You see the words, you recognize the pages, but the meaning is lost. Learning the language of money allows you to read the opportunities, the risks, and the strategies embedded in the financial world around you. It transforms random information into actionable insight. When I began studying, I didn't try to learn everything at once. I focused on one principle at a time. I learned what it meant to have equity in a business and how ownership could generate long-term wealth. I studied cash flow until I could see how money moved in a business or an investment, where it entered, where it exited, and how it could be maximized. I explored ROI, not just as a percentage on a spreadsheet, but as a measure of the efficiency and intelligence of each decision I made. Over time, these concepts became second nature. They weren't just terms I understood. They became a lens through which I viewed every financial opportunity. The power of this knowledge is profound. I met countless people with good incomes who failed to grow wealth simply because they didn't understand what their money was doing. They had dollars but lacked vision, capital but lacked comprehension. On the other hand, those who mastered the language of money could spot opportunities in assets that others ignored, negotiate terms that others overlooked, and make investments that turned modest sums into meaningful portfolios. Knowledge translated directly into freedom and influence. So, the question isn't whether you have enough money today. It's whether you have the knowledge to make that money work for you. Make it a daily habit to study financial concepts, to dissect reports, to analyze investments, and to learn from those who have successfully built wealth. Speak to accountants, attend seminars, read books, Immerse yourself until terms like dividend yield or capital gains roll off your tongue like native speech. When this language becomes part of you, when you think in ROI and cash flow before making decisions, you stop being a spectator. You become a participant. Remember, wealth is not given, it is understood. And understanding begins with language. Speak it, live it, and you will no longer be at the mercy of money. You will guide it. One of the biggest misconceptions people have about wealth is that it comes from doing everything themselves. They believe that to be successful, they must grind, hustle, and micromanage every single detail. I learned early in my career that this is a trap that keeps you busy but not productive, exhausted but not wealthy. True wealth is created not by working harder, but by working smarter. And the smartest way to work is to create leverage through systems and people. I remember the first time I understood the power of leverage. I was trying to manage every part of a small project on my own, thinking that if I didn't do it myself, it wouldn't get done correctly. I was exhausted, frustrated, and making mistakes. My mentor looked at me and said, "Jim, you're trying to pull the cart by yourself when there are horses standing right here ready to help. Build a system, get the right people, and focus on what only you can do." That was a turning point. I realized that my time was far too valuable to spend on tasks that could be delegated, automated, or systematized. Leverage works in two ways. First, systems. A system is a process that produces predictable results with minimal effort once it's in place. Think of it as a machine. Whether it's an accounting system, a customer follow-up system, or a savings and investing system, the goal is to have your money, your business, and your life move efficiently even when you're not directly pushing every button. Systems allow consistency and reliability, and they free your mind from constant worry about the small details. Second, leverage comes from people. No one builds great wealth alone. I've worked with assistants, partners, mentors, and skilled professionals who each contributed something I couldn't do by myself. Delegating isn't giving up control. It's multiplying your results. When you hire the right people, train them well, and empower them with responsibility, your impact expands exponentially. Suddenly, 1 hour of your time generates the same result as 10 hours of someone struggling to learn it on their own. I learned that my highest value activities were not administrative work or answering routine questions. They were thinking strategically, creating ideas, building relationships, and making high-level decisions. Once I applied leverage, my time was spent where it mattered most, and everything else operated efficiently around me. The beauty is that leverage doesn't just make you wealthier, it makes your life richer. You experience freedom, flexibility, and control over your time, the very things most people sacrifice for a paycheck. So, if you want to move from merely working for money to building lasting wealth, you must learn to create systems that run without you and surround yourself with capable people who multiply your efforts. Your time is the currency that compounds fastest. Protect it, leverage it, and focus it where it produces the highest return. Remember, true wealth is not just the dollars in your account. It's the freedom and impact that leverage creates in your life. One of the most overlooked principles of wealth is measurement. People often say, "I'll know I'm wealthy when I see it." But wealth isn't something you guess at. It's something you track, monitor, and actively manage. If you don't measure it, you can't improve it. You can't grow what you don't know. I learned this lesson the hard way in my early years, when I was simply going through the motions, earning a little here, spending a little there, never really knowing where my money was going or how it was performing. I remember the first time a mentor asked me, "Jim, do you know your net worth?" I froze. I didn't. I had bank accounts, a small business, a few debts, but I had never sat down to calculate it. That question changed everything. Wealth isn't luck. It isn't chance. It's math applied consistently over time. Once I started measuring, the fog lifted. Suddenly, I could see what was working and what was wasting away. I knew where to double down and where to cut back. The first thing I measure is my net worth. Assets minus liabilities. That simple calculation tells me if I'm moving forward or standing still. It's not about the day-to-day fluctuations, it's about the trend. Are my assets growing faster than my liabilities? Am I making progress toward the life I want to create? If not, I know I need to adjust my actions. Next, I measure my savings rate. How much of my income am I truly keeping for the future? This is where discipline shows up. It's one thing to earn money, but if every dollar is spent before it even hits your account, financial freedom will always remain a dream. By measuring savings consistently, I could see the impact of small adjustments, cutting a little here, automating savings there, and it all compounds over time. I also measure my returns. Money that sits idle doesn't grow. Money that works intelligently multiplies. So I track investments, side ventures, and other income-producing activities. Am I getting the results I expect? Could I be more strategic? Are my dollars performing as employees, not as lazy friends lounging in my bank account? These numbers don't just tell me where I am, they tell me what decisions to make next. Measurement changes behavior because it creates accountability. Once you see the numbers, excuses vanish. You can no longer blame circumstances, luck, or the economy. You see the truth, and with that truth comes power. The power to act, adjust, and improve. I have found that people who measure regularly not only grow their wealth faster, they gain confidence, clarity, and control. They stop reacting and start leading. So, if you want to move from uncertainty to financial freedom, start measuring everything that matters: your net worth, your savings rate, and the performance of your investments. Track, review, and adjust. Numbers don't lie, they reveal where you are and illuminate the path to where you want to be. Remember, what gets measured gets managed, and what gets managed grows. One of the greatest secrets to building wealth is understanding the power of seasons. Life moves in cycles, and so does money. There are times to invest, times to give, and times to harvest. But there are also seasons of sacrifice, periods where you deliberately tighten your belt, focus intensely, and put yourself in a position to leap ahead financially. These are not forever, but they are transformative. I remember early in my journey when I realized that if I wanted to break free from living paycheck to paycheck, I had to embrace a season of sacrifice. I was 25, broke, and in debt. I had dreams bigger than my bank account and ambitions louder than my reality. My mentor once said, "Jim, you don't have to live this way forever, but you must be willing to live differently for a while." Those words stayed with me. I committed to a 90-day season where I lived leaner than ever before. Every dollar I earned went either to debt repayment, saving, or investing in my knowledge. I cut unnecessary spending, avoided temptations, and focused on building the foundation of my financial life. The days were long, but every sacrifice I made became a brick in the structure of freedom I was creating. Seasons of sacrifice work because they create momentum. Momentum in life is like a rolling snowball. Small efforts, when consistent, compound into unstoppable force. Imagine if you dedicated 6 months or a year to living on 70% of your income, saving aggressively, and investing intelligently. The progress you make during that focused period will far exceed what casual effort over years can accomplish. It's a deliberate acceleration of your financial trajectory. I've seen people completely transform their financial situation in less than a year, simply because they committed to a season of focused effort. But this isn't just about money. It's about discipline and mindset. When you willingly embrace a season of sacrifice, you learn self-control, delayed gratification, and the confidence that comes from taking responsibility. You discover that your desires don't control you. Your choices do. I recall helping a friend in his 52nd who thought it was too late to start over. We mapped out a year-long plan where he would live frugally, invest diligently, and dedicate extra hours to building skills. By the end of that year, not only had he significantly increased his net worth, but he also gained the confidence to pursue opportunities he never imagined. The beauty of these seasons is that they are temporary, but their impact is permanent. Money earned, habits formed, and mindset shifted during these periods continue to yield results long after the season ends. You see, wealth doesn't happen in a straight line. It happens in bursts, seasons of focus and disciplined action. Your life will never be exactly the same once you commit to these focused periods. So, if you want to leap ahead financially, embrace seasons of sacrifice, choose a period, 90 days, 6 months, a year. Commit fully, live lean, save aggressively, work hard, and invest in yourself. The temporary discomfort will build momentum that propels you toward freedom. Remember, short-term discipline leads to long-term abundance. Debt has a way of shaping lives, sometimes quietly, sometimes loudly. I've seen people crushed under its weight, and I've seen people use it as a tool to climb to freedom. The difference lies in understanding the nature of debt, good debt versus bad debt. Most people never stop to think about this, and as a result, they borrow emotionally rather than strategically. They take on loans to fund consumption, to buy things that lose value the moment they leave the store. That's bad debt. It's a slow drain on your freedom, and it keeps you tethered to the paycheck treadmill. I remember a young man who came to me overwhelmed with credit card balances. Every month, he struggled to pay the minimum, and yet he believed he was making it because he had a nice car and the latest gadgets. I told him, "You are not broke because you don't earn enough. You are broke because you don't control how you use what you earn." That's the essence of bad debt, using borrowed money for lifestyle instead of leverage. It's easy to convince yourself that it's harmless, but over time it compounds into limitation, stress, and a feeling that financial freedom is forever out of reach. Good debt, on the other hand, is completely different. It's a tool. It's leverage that buys assets, creates income, and multiplies your opportunities. If you borrow to invest in a business, education, or property that appreciates or generates cash flow, you're not enslaved. You're creating a vehicle for financial growth. I often tell people that debt isn't inherently bad. What matters is the purpose and the structure. I used debt early in my career to invest in learning and opportunities that multiplied my capacity. It was calculated, disciplined, and strategic. Each borrowed dollar became a worker, a soldier in the army of wealth I was building. The key is emotion versus strategy. Most people borrow emotionally. They want instant gratification, social validation, or a lifestyle they can't sustain. The wealthy borrow strategically. They have a plan, understand the numbers, and ensure that any debt taken on either returns more than it costs or builds long-term value. Consider this. If a debt costs 5% annually but produces an asset that earns 10%, it's a decision that grows your net worth. Conversely, a debt that costs 10% but funds a fleeting desire shrinks your net worth and freedom. That's the critical difference. Another principle I learned early is that every loan should have a purpose and a horizon. Never borrow blindly, never chase status, and never treat debt as free money. Track it, control it, and ensure it's working for you, not against you. Discipline in borrowing is just as important as discipline in earning, saving, and investing. When you master this, debt becomes a lever for opportunity rather than a chain that limits you. Remember, financial freedom is not about avoiding debt entirely. It's about knowing which debts serve your future and which ones serve only your impulses. Control your borrowing, and you control your life. Ignore it, and it will control you. The choice is always yours. Life has a way of reminding us that certainty is an illusion. One day, everything seems predictable, and the next, a market drops, a business slows, or an unexpected emergency arrives at your doorstep. The difference between those who survive and thrive financially and those who struggle is preparation. Having a financial contingency plan isn't about fear, it's about wisdom. It's about understanding that the unexpected is not an exception but a certainty. I've seen countless people forced to sell their investments at a loss or take on expensive debt simply because they hadn't planned for the rainy day. It doesn't matter how wealthy you are on paper. If every dollar you have is exposed to sudden shocks, your financial freedom is fragile. When I began building my life and career, I learned the hard way that emergencies don't wait for convenience. A health bill, a sudden drop in income, or a necessary investment in opportunity can appear without warning. I made it a habit to always have reserves, liquidity that allowed me to act from a position of strength rather than desperation. A contingency plan is about creating buffers, cash reserves, emergency funds, diversified income streams, and insurance where necessary. It's about ensuring that no single event can derail your progress or force you into panic decisions. I remember a colleague who had invested heavily in a business but had no backup plan. When the market turned, he had to sell assets at a fraction of their value. Contrast that with someone who had planned carefully. A temporary market dip was simply an opportunity to buy at a discount, not a catastrophe. The beauty of a financial contingency plan is that it allows you to act with confidence. You are no longer reactive, you are proactive. Knowing that you have a cushion, you can make long-term decisions without being blinded by short-term crises. I teach people to think in terms of 3 layers. A basic emergency fund for immediate needs, a reserve for medium-term challenges like market dips, and a strategic fund for seizing unexpected opportunities. With these layers, fear loses its grip, and your financial decisions become deliberate, measured, and growth-oriented. Planning for the unexpected is also about mindset. It shifts you from living paycheck to paycheck to living with intention. You begin to see money as a tool for stability, for opportunity, and for freedom. You stop reacting to events outside your control and start designing your response to life's inevitable fluctuations. And remember, contingency planning is not static. It evolves with your income, assets, and responsibilities. Every year, every milestone, it's wise to reassess and reinforce your safeguards. Ultimately, financial freedom is not about avoiding risk. It's about managing it wisely. Expect the unexpected, prepare for it, and you'll never be forced into decisions that undermine your future. The discipline you build today through careful planning transforms fear into opportunity, uncertainty into confidence, and instability into lasting freedom. The choice to plan is the choice to master your life rather than be mastered by circumstance. Time is the one asset you can never reclaim. And the true measure of wealth is not just in dollars, but in the cumulative value of the years you live. I've always believed that each year of your life should leave you stronger, wiser, and more capable than the year before. Think of it this way. If you are the same person today as you were a year ago, you've missed the most important opportunity life offers, growth. Whether through skills, connections, or net worth, your goal should be that every year compounds in value, just as your money should. When I began my journey, I quickly realized that wealth is not a sudden event. It is the product of consistent improvement. One of the most valuable lessons I learned from my mentors was to review each year as if I were auditing my life. What did I learn? Whom did I meet? What new doors did I open? Did I grow financially, intellectually, or emotionally? If the answer was not affirmative, I knew I had wasted precious time. Time spent without improvement is an opportunity lost. Making each year more valuable requires a conscious strategy. Start by identifying areas where growth is most impactful. Perhaps it's learning a new skill that increases your earning potential, or investing in relationships that expand your influence. Maybe it's increasing your net worth through disciplined saving and strategic investing. Each of these elements, skills, connections, and wealth, reinforces the others. Skills make you more valuable in any environment. Connections create opportunities that skills alone cannot. And wealth gives you the freedom to leverage both. I remember when I invested time into attending seminars, meeting mentors, and reading voraciously. Each year, my knowledge grew, my network expanded, and my capacity to create value multiplied. Another critical factor is reflection. Without taking stock, you cannot improve. At the end of each year, I would review what worked, what didn't, and what I could change. This practice allows you to learn from successes and failures alike. It's not just about making more money. It's about becoming more of the person who can generate value, influence, and freedom. I often say that the wealthy don't merely seek money. They seek improvement. And wealth is a natural byproduct of becoming better, stronger, and more capable each year. Finally, embrace incremental growth. The goal is not to leap to greatness overnight, but to ensure that each day, each month, and each year leaves you in a better position than before. Even small improvements compound over time, creating enormous advantages. If you invest in yourself, nurture your relationships, and manage your money wisely, the accumulation of these deliberate actions will make every passing year a stepping stone toward a life of financial freedom, independence, and purpose. The choice is yours. Let years slip by like leaves in the wind, or make every year a building block that strengthens your future. Energy is the currency of productivity, and without it, even the best plans and strategies remain dormant. I've seen it time and again. People chase wealth, climb the corporate ladder, invest wisely, yet their energy depletes faster than their bank accounts grow. Poor health, chronic stress, or burnout can silently erode your capacity to act, think, and seize opportunities. In fact, I would go so far as to say that energy is more valuable than money, because money can be replaced, but time and vitality cannot. When I was younger, I often overlooked this principle. I believed that long hours and endless work were the paths to success. I thought that sacrificing sleep, exercise, or proper nutrition was a small price to pay for growth. But I learned the hard way that the brain and body are the engines of achievement. If the engine is weak, it cannot carry the load, no matter how much strategy or knowledge you possess. I remember a period when I was overcommitted, constantly tired, and running on sheer willpower. My decisions were poor, my creativity stalled, and opportunities slipped through my fingers. That was a costly lesson, far beyond any financial misstep. Wealthy individuals understand that energy management is as crucial as money management. Protecting your vitality ensures that you can think clearly, act decisively, and execute plans with precision. This doesn't mean avoiding hard work. It means working intelligently. Rest, nutrition, exercise, and mental clarity are not luxuries. They are strategic investments. I learned to schedule time for exercise, even in the busiest weeks, because I knew that a few hours of physical and mental upkeep could save me weeks of inefficiency later. Energy also protects your focus. Distractions, excessive stress, or emotional burnout act like leaks in a financial account. They drain you without notice. Guarding your energy means setting boundaries, saying no to unproductive commitments, and prioritizing what truly matters. It means cultivating mental and emotional resilience so that challenges do not deplete your inner resources. I've always said that opportunity favors the energetic, and in my experience, those who maintain their vitality consistently outperform those who merely push harder with exhausted bodies and minds. Think of your energy as a bank account. Every decision you make, how you spend your time, how you treat your body, how you respond to stress, either deposits into it or withdraws from it. Poor choices create deficits that compound, while wise decisions build reserves that compound too. Protecting your energy is not indulgence. It is strategic self-preservation. The more energy you have, the more productive you become, and the greater the opportunities you can seize. If you want to create lasting wealth, you must treat your vitality as seriously as your finances. Without energy, even the smartest strategies fail. With energy, even modest resources can multiply into extraordinary results. Guard it, nurture it, and use it wisely. Your future depends on it. Diversification isn't just a principle for investments. It's a principle for life, especially when it comes to income. I've watched far too many people put all their eggs into one basket, whether it's a single job, one business, or a solitary skill set, only to discover that life has a way of shifting without warning. The economy changes, industries evolve, companies downsize, and health or personal circumstances can alter your capacity to earn. If all your income comes from one source, you are exposed, vulnerable, and at the mercy of forces beyond your control. Early in my career, I relied solely on speaking engagements and consulting work. It paid the bills, but it also left me dependent on schedules and clients. I quickly realized that no matter how talented or respected I was, relying on a single source of income was like building a house on sand. One unexpected change could, and did, shake the foundation. That realization sparked a shift in my thinking. Why not create multiple streams of income that could operate independently, each feeding the other and reducing my exposure to risk? Diversifying income is not merely about spreading money. It's about creating resilience, freedom, and opportunity. One stream could come from direct work, another from investments, a third from intellectual property, or even from teaching and mentorship. The principle is simple. While one source may fluctuate, others continue to flow, keeping you financially steady and giving you breathing room to grow. In my life, I turned knowledge into books, seminars, and training programs. Each of these streams was connected to my expertise, yet each was independent enough to continue even if one faltered. That approach transformed financial uncertainty into stability. The mindset behind diversification also encourages creativity and growth. When you seek multiple avenues for income, you naturally expand your skills, your network, and your perspective. You are forced to think strategically, recognize opportunities, and act decisively. I've met people who began by adding a single side hustle or investment and ended up building entire ecosystems of income that allowed them to walk away from reliance on a single employer or market. Diversification also guards against complacency. When your income depends on one source, There is a tendency to relax and assume that the future is secure. But life is unpredictable, and financial freedom demands vigilance. By spreading your earnings across different avenues, you cultivate adaptability, resilience, and the courage to explore new possibilities. Think of it like a garden. You wouldn't plant only one crop and hope for the best. You plant several, so if one fails, others thrive. Similarly, by diversifying your income, you ensure that no single setback can wipe out your financial stability. Wealth built this way is not fragile. It's robust, flexible, and enduring. Start today by identifying areas where you can generate additional income, however small. Look for skills, investments, or creative avenues that complement your current work. Begin with one new stream and let it grow. With time, discipline, and strategic thinking, you create not only wealth, but freedom, the true measure of success. As we draw this conversation to a close, remember this. Wealth is not an accident. It is not a lottery ticket or a matter of luck. It is the result of deliberate decisions, consistent discipline, and the willingness to think long term. Every principle we've discussed today, from mastering your income, living below your means, and creating assets, to diversifying your streams of income and protecting your energy, is a brick in the foundation of financial freedom. Each action you take, no matter how small, compounds over time into lasting security, opportunity, and choice. But knowledge alone is not enough. You can study these principles for decades and never see change if you don't act. That is why I urge you to turn reflection into action today. Look at your life honestly. Which habits are holding you back? Which streams of income can you start, even in a modest way, this week? Which financial decisions will move you closer to freedom instead of keeping you trapped in a cycle of stress and uncertainty? Start small, but start now. Open a notebook and track your money. Begin building one asset. Learn one financial principle and apply it immediately. Plan your months, measure your results, and adjust. Make these disciplines part of your daily life until they become as natural as breathing. Remember, true wealth is not just in the bank, it is in the confidence, wisdom, and freedom you cultivate. Each step you take toward managing your money wisely is a step toward mastering your life. You are not merely surviving, you are building, growing, and creating a legacy that will outlast you. So take charge. Decide today that money will serve you, not the other way around. Commit to action, and let this be the day your financial journey truly begins. The power is in your hands, and the time is now.